Kia ora koutou, it's me, Radar, here with another one of our HR chats with me, Radar. This is an ongoing series on all things HR and HR related. Today, in a special episode for Mental Health Awareness Week, we're talking to Jazz Thornton. Following her own battle with mental illness, she dedicated her life to speaking hope and creating change in the area of mental health through her organisation, Voices of Hope. Her unique experience and practical message has gained worldwide recognition, being shared through media, international speaking engagements, even a very, very good feature documentary film, The Girl on the Bridge. She's directed award-winning series. She's authored books. She was the youngest director to win a Doc Edge pitching series with her project, The Silence Project. She got a prize from the Queen. The Queen gave her the Point of Light Award in 2021. Also that year named 2021 Young New Zealander of the Year. And spoiler alert, for those of you who have yet to catch up with 2022's Dancing with the Stars, she was the champion, raising funds and awareness for Lifeline. Jazz, that's a lot of things.
I sometimes forget how much has happened in such a short time until someone lists it off like that. It's been a crazy couple of years.
It has been a crazy couple of years, and to be fair, it was maybe a crazy couple of years that weren't going to happen. You've had a very well documented battle with mental health and multiple suicide attempts. Do you sometimes just sit here now and think, gosh, this might not have happened?
Oh, all the time. I think, if you told my teenage self that she would be doing any of this today, or let alone be here, she would have never believed you. And it's quite a weird thing to be, living a life when you wholeheartedly believed that you weren't going to have one. And so I constantly find myself being like, this is crazy. Like, to think I nearly missed all of this is surreal.
It is. Hey, look, we're going to be talking today about connection, the importance of connection and reconnection. And I was watching some of your stuff, and I was really moved by that moment you'd had a suicide attempt, and a young policewoman was with you, and she connected with you, and she was with you in the ambulance and gave you her phone number, and you couldn't get over the fact that someone had connected with you and cared with you. How important is that sense of connection?
The sense of connection is vital. Humans need connection to survive. We need human connection. We need connection with nature, all of those kinds of things. But when I look back, even, at my own story, all of the key things that stand out to me and the key things that significantly help and that I speak of today are within those moments of connection with other people, with people who took the time to care, with people who did something that was maybe a little bit out of the norm of whether it be their job, or I would go to say as far as like New Zealand scripted lifestyle of, hey, how are you? Good, thanks. How are you? Move on with your day. For people that break the script and go outside to connect outside of that is so significant for us as humans.
How do you break that script? Because it's almost ritualistic, isn't it? And I do take it quite seriously. When someone says, how are you? I do often have a little thought, and then I bore them with really boring details about my day. But how do you get beyond that little moment and really connect with people?
I think honestly, it's in one simple word after that. It is the reality that we have literally grown up with this scripting, and often we don't know what to do when someone breaks the script, because this is all we've been told when you are walking past someone in the office at work or anything like that. That's the scripting that we know. But taking the time after saying, how are you, waiting for the probably, yeah, good, thanks, how are you? And then going, no, how are you really? How are you really doing? And just one word difference can say, I'm open to having this conversation. You're allowed to break the script, as something that's really small but very significant.
Yeah, and I guess, part of the last couple of years as well has been that people aren't in those familiar patterns of behavior around office workplaces, social groups. I guess even more important when you may not necessarily be in the same place as somebody, so you're not getting a sense of how they might be on a day-to-day level.
Yeah, I think that especially over the last few years, as we faced the pandemic, it really did significantly alter the way that we do connect, because, you know, now we have all of these things online and there's Zoom and you're not with people, and the work culture has changed. And, you know, like I said at the start, as humans, we need that human connection. And so it's really been a learning curve of how do you still go to those deeper levels of connections and have these conversations when you are online, or doing those kinds of things, which is where it's become so vital that we are so intentional about going out and physically connecting with people where we can. And I've even found for myself, it's had to be something I intentionally do, because it's quite easy to just stay in my house all day and just Zoom people or text people or just watch their social media and keep up with them on that. But being intentional about it is really good for your mental health.
Yeah. Look, we're probably not even going to have time to get into the upsides and downsides of social media. But if we did, if you could put it into like a tiny sentence, you know, because I know it is part of connection as well. You know, as much as I don't want to be on it, I do like those moments of connection. Any kind of tips and advice from your experience around the use or misuse of social media?
My biggest tip is to set screen time app alerts on it. So don't sit there and scroll for hours. You can literally cap the amount of time that you spend on it. It is amazing for connection. It's amazing for seeing what people are up to without having to always be in conversation. So it's a really awesome tool that we have developed, but don't let it completely indulge your life and be spending more time online than in real life. So set app limits is my biggest piece of advice.
That is a great piece of advice. Hey, look, when you're speaking to people, to businesses and groups around connection, whether it's in the workplace or with family, what are your sort of key messages there? What advice do you have from your experience?
My biggest piece of advice is to never underestimate the power of stories. I think especially in a lot of workplaces and people that are struggling, they are so afraid to speak up because they're afraid of judgment. They're afraid of being seen as less than in their workplaces. They're afraid of, you know, maybe not being put up for promotions or things like that if they speak up. But one of the most powerful things that I've seen, you know, a lot of people, whether it be in HR or literally CEOs or people in executive teams, is taking the space to share bits and pieces of their own stories, either whether it is, you know, if they feel comfortable talking about their own battle with different things or just different life situations that are happening in their own worlds. As hard as that can sometimes be, it breaks down the barrier that prevents people from speaking up. And that's why, you know, what I do with lived experience storytelling is, I don't want to use the word successful because I'm a Kiwi and we don't do that, right? But it is so successful.
No, we do not, Jess.
We do not up ourselves, but it is so successful because people want lived experience. And all of my key connection points that I've had in my life have been because someone has even been like, man, there was this one time that I was struggling with this, or my kid was struggling with this. And I'm like, oh, you're a human who understands. So yeah, don't ever underestimate the power of storytelling.
How do people bring that in, I suppose? How do they encourage it? Like, we're encouraging people to talk. What about getting people to talk?
I think that, you know, as a workplace, being willing to, whether it is bringing in, you know, mental health speakers, or if you're doing days around, I know in Australia they have Are You OK Day, which New Zealand has adapted as well. But creating those spaces that, even with Mental Health Awareness Week, is there a program that you can run? Is there an event you can do? Can you do yoga for, you know, whatever it may be? And showing things like that is showing those that are struggling that, oh, okay, this workplace is one that actually cares about this, because it's really hard for them to speak up cold turkey. It's really hard for them to speak up if, as a workplace or an organization, you're not already kind of showing in your support that this is something that you care about. And we've seen a lot of that. I think speakers is a really good thing, whether it's webinars or, you know, there's a lot of mental health corporate speakers in New Zealand that help open that conversation. I know of a couple of workplaces that have done like an anonymous like box thing where people can write in what they're actually feeling and if they've got struggles in work and stuff like that, which is a good way to start the conversation, and then being like, you know, as a workplace, we're willing to support you, and then hopefully they'll come forward. But there are a whole lot of practical things like that that you can do to get people talking.
Yeah. How about with friends. Friends is often very difficult, isn't it? Because, you don't, I know we probably all sat there with, great burdens and you're right, we don't want to bother people.
Mhm.
I've often said, there's a phrase, no one ever died of embarrassment, but actually I think they do. People are embarrassed to share their issues. They're reticent to, to, to put somebody out in the course of a day. How do you kind of let people know that no matter when, no matter where, you're always available for a conversation?
I think being able to put yourself out there in regards to, whether you are constantly saying if anyone needs to talk that you're there, that constant communication is a really big thing. But also I know that in my own life, a lot of the things that I've seen, and kind of the way that I interact with people now, the consistency is really key. But you've got to understand that here in Aotearoa in New Zealand, there is a quarter of the entire population is struggling. You are not alone in this. You are not the only person, and there's a really high chance that when you reach out for help and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, someone else is going to go, oh my gosh, me too. And that goes back to the power of storytelling, right? But being able to say and have that consistent communication of going, I am someone that you can talk to, whether there's mental health first aiders in your workplace, which is a really big thing, or things like that, can encourage people to have the conversations. But just reiterating that they're not alone, in their struggles is really big.
No, look, and loneliness is one of those, key kind of predictors, I suppose, of not only mental health issues, but even longevity. Lonely people often, statistically, according to what I've read in various accounts, don't live as long. And as you say, we're hardwired for kind of socialization. What are some of the sort of the impacts of that COVID period that you're seeing, and how are people dealing with those?
Oh, the impact of COVID has been absolutely astronomical. I think that there was a lot of talk around how post-COVID we are going to see the next kind of pandemic is going to be within mental health issues and the epidemic of loneliness, which is significant. And I think what COVID did is that a lot of people already kind of just in their own mind feel really lonely, and then to add physical isolation to the already overwhelming feeling of loneliness was significant. And we found that it was a lot easier for people to retract from social situations, and people weren't getting checked in on as much, because when you're in your own house and you're not seeing people physically, it's a lot harder to connect. But that's where, again, I personally am having to be so intentional about, okay, I'm going to go have coffee with my friend on Saturday, I'm going to go for a walk, I'm going to do these things and set time aside. But also intentionally setting time aside for other people, being the one to reach out. If someone might be, retracting a bit, or you haven't seen them recently, don't wait for them to reach out. Be the one who's like, hey, do you want to go grab a coffee, or do you want to go for a walk, or wherever it may be. We have to be initiating together. We're in this together.
Yeah. Like, even if you're texting each other saying, look, God, man, I don't really want to go for a coffee. Shall we not want to go for a coffee together?
That's good. I like the yes.
Hey, thanks. Look, again, whatever it is that takes that connection, literally, let's sit around, let's go somewhere and mope, whether it's a beach or a walk. Hey, you also talk around that reconnection with things like nature, with going for a walk. In those moments, how important is something like that, just to get out of to break a routine or whatever it may be?
So important. I didn't realize how important it was until I started actually, like, intentionally in my day. I will get up, and if I'm in an office or if I'm at my house, I will get up and I will leave for like at least 15 minutes and just walk around. And all that does is that, in the hustle bustle of work environments and getting stuff done, is that your brain is just on full speed all the time, and that's not healthy. And so taking, a 10-15 minute break to go outside, to walk around. If there's, I'm very lucky, I live next to a beach, or even just walking on the street, is so beneficial. It just allows your brain just a moment to breathe, a moment to stop, a moment to pause, a moment to reflect. And there's a reason that we always say with mental health that getting outside and exercising is so good for your mental health, and that's because it's true. And it really does help. So it's something I've had to put into my day. Every single day I will do that.
Look, and as you say, even a simple walk, the physical benefits as well as the mental health benefits are very well categorized. And that sense of I saw a study somewhere where they said those people who walk a different route every day, there's always something to discover. And active walking as well. Being really engaged with your surroundings and what's going on, you sort of discover all those little things. You feel the sun on your face for the first time all winter, and goodness knows we're all looking forward to that as the summer sort of rolls in. Um, for people who need help, there's not a lot of professional help available at the moment, is there?
No, unfortunately not.
What do we do? How do people get around it? How do we circumvent the inaccessibility of professionals?
There definitely is a huge lack of professional services. I do think one thing that is really great here in New Zealand is that most businesses have something called EAP. So they have access to counselling sessions for their staff, and usually there are already counsellors allocated to that. So being able to kind of go through employment is a really good way to help combat that, but also understanding that mental health, and I will say our suicide statistics is everyone's responsibility. And as a society, having those conversations of, asking how are you really, and that kind of thing is really significant. One of the things that really helped me was people in my own world every single day would just message me things like, hey, we love you, hey, we're proud of you. And that was really big for me, because my beliefs were that I was a burden and that I was unlovable. So they would purposefully combat that. So it's understanding that as a society, we do all have a place to play. It's not our job to save people. And there are services, like Lifeline, like 1737, that if you really need help immediately and you're struggling to find it, there's always the fallback of the phone service, and they are amazing. I know a lot of the people that work there. So even though it feels really overwhelming and difficult to find help, there is absolutely help avenues here in New Zealand.
How incredible are those people, eh? Just sitting there. My day doesn't involve going and sitting in a phone and knowing that someone in one of the lowest moments of their life is going to give me a call and I'm going to have to talk to them. I'm astounded at the generosity of spirit that people who do that have.
Yeah, and it's really heartening to know that people are willing to do that. That to me shows that you're not alone. It shows that there are people that are willing to fight for you when you don't feel like you can fight for yourself. And I know a lot of these people, with Dancing with the Stars, I was working with Youthline, and so I met all of their counsellors, and it's a service I used growing up as a teenager and as a young adult, and it's so incredible. These people are amazing.
Hey, look, I know there are going to be people who are listening or watching this who have kids of their own who may be struggling. We're looking at the terrifying stats around children and young people and their mental health. For parents who have got a kid, a nephew, a friend's kid who seems to be struggling, any advice for them?
My biggest piece, I mean, there's a lot of different things, but the one thing that I will always say first and foremost is absolutely never use the phrase, back in my day, it was so much worse, or, but I had all these things. You've actually got a really good life, because all that does is it just minimizes everything that your kid is struggling with. And I say this because it is probably the most common thing that young people will come to me and say, is that they feel like their parents don't understand because they've minimized it by saying things like that. There's a mental health, there's so much that plays into it. It doesn't, if your kid is struggling, it doesn't mean that it's your fault. So don't be embarrassed to seek out help for them. Going to the GP and trying to find them a counsellor. We've got funds like Gumboot Friday Fund that can help with that as well. There's also a whole lot of like online resources. There's different books that are available if they're kind of in the teenage, maybe like 10 to 18. I've got my second book, My Journey Starts Here, is like a practical journal of all of the practical tools that you can do to fight. And there are other resources like that exist as well. But doing what you can to show your kid that you care, and that you might not understand, and that's okay. But it is important that you try to act as much as you can.
Brilliant. I'm going to put you on the spot. Single greatest piece of advice anyone's ever given you. And I'm sure people have given you some some terrible pieces of advice over the years as well. I mean, you got the worst and the best.
Yeah.
I'll go with
Oh
the best.
man, it's the best piece of advice, or the best thing that someone's ever said to me, is, Jazz, you in a day, you don't have to go out and change the entire world, but in every day you have the ability to change someone's world. And that has stuck with me all the time, where I'm like, in every interaction that you have with someone, you don't have to go and change the entire world, but with your words and your actions, you have the ability to help change someone's world.
Yes, wonderful. I always go back to that Jacinda Ardern quote: "Through our small acts of kindness, we can be, or through our daily acts of kindness, we can be the people we believe ourselves to be." It is one of those little things, or whether it's talking to someone in a line at a cafe, or the checkout operator at a supermarket, or whoever it may be. You can just put a smile on somebody's face, and actually, when you put a smile on somebody's face, actually, you feel really good as well. So it's like the great circle of things. Hey, are you still dancing?
I am. I'm
Are
just about
you?
to start working on a new project, which I'm very excited for. They are somehow trusting me to learn an entire dance for something. I don't think I'm allowed to announce it yet, but yes, the short answer is yes.
Hey, well, look, I know how hard it is to put yourself out on a platform like that. I couldn't do it because I don't think I have the resilience to be voted off. Probably in the first episode, when people realize that I literally have no rhythm. But so, like, I thought it was magnificent. So hey, thank you for joining us, and I know that you take a lot of calls every week from people who are struggling. So I hope you're looking after yourself as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, no, thank you. And I look forward to seeing all the incredible work that you continue to do, and your next dance-based project.
So excited.
Marvelous. So I'm so excited. Hey, Jazz Thornton, look, as I say, she has got some fantastic books. If you haven't seen the documentary, The Girl on the Bridge, I think you can access that online as well. So by all means do. Jazz Thornton, co-founded Voices of Hope. What a wonderful part of our HR chats that has been. Just a reminder for those of you who are watchers and listeners of the series, if there is anyone or anything you would like us to talk about, HR or HR related, just let HR NZ know. From me, for now, ka kite.